This week, we mark the 11th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Instead of pulling back from the world, we've strengthened our alliances while improving our security here at home. And our country is stronger, safer, and more respected in the world. I've always said that America is at war with Al-Qaeda and its affiliates, and we will never be at war with Islam or any other religion. And we look out for each other, not just on the difficult days, but every day. We took the fight to Al-Qaeda, decimating their leadership.
Al-Qaeda's leadership has been devastated, and Osama bin Laden will never threaten us again.
The goal that I set, to defeat Al-Qaeda and deny it a chance to rebuild, is now within our reach.
Frankly, there are those who are saying the best thing that could happen to us is be attacked by somebody. Just bring it on.
An explosion of violence aimed at the United States. Muslim protesters stormed the U.S. Embassy. They're angry over a film they consider insulting to the Prophet Muhammad. Our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel's in the region. He's with us tonight from Istanbul. Hey, Richard, what was this about, and was the embassy, which, like all others, was guarded by U.S. Marines, ever in any real danger?
It was never in any real danger. This was all triggered by a movie, a fringe radical movie made in the United States that is insulting to Islam. And already tonight there has been another attack, that one in Benghazi, the U.S. consulate there. Demonstrators, angry by the film, tried to burn it down. The U.S. State Department says all staff have been accounted for.
Egypt's still America's ally.
I don't think that we would consider them an ally.
But today, demonstrators scaled the walls of the embassy, pulled down an American flag and destroyed it, and replaced it with a black flag bearing an Islamic declaration of faith. And the source of all the fury, a film made in the U.S., which the protesters say insults Islam. ABC's Alex Marquardt is in the region tonight.
Hundreds of angry demonstrators descended tonight on the American embassy in Cairo. Some managed to scale the embassy's high walls, pulling down an American flag and ripping it to shreds. Others waved black flags that looked like those of Al-Qaeda. The embassy knew something was brewing. The ambassador and most of the staff had left the complex ahead of the protest. The American consulate in Benghazi, Libya, was also attacked tonight. That incident believed to also have been sparked by that same controversial film. As for Cairo, the protests have now quieted. The American embassy there tells us that all staff are safe and accounted for.
We need to begin tonight with some breaking news. It's international. It is out of Libya this evening in the city of Benghazi. Apparently, a mob descended on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi today and reportedly set it on fire. Witnesses say explosions were heard nearby, and the men who attacked the American building were armed. There are conflicting reports tonight about exactly how grave the attack was on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi in Libya. Multiple reports are now citing a Libyan official who says that a staffer at the consulate, in some cases the person is described as an American official, was killed in the attack on the consulate.
We're going to provoke an attack because then we will be in power for as long as anyone can imagine.
These attacks today were led by groups of people who were reportedly angered by a YouTube video. A YouTube video reportedly linked to an Egyptian American, a video that depicts the Prophet Muhammad in a way that has been perceived as blasphemous.
Since our founding, the United States has been a nation that respects all faiths. We reject all efforts to denigrate the religious beliefs of others. Libyans helped some of our diplomats find safety, and they carried Ambassador Stevens' body to the hospital, where we tragically learned that he had died. Of course, yesterday was already a painful day for our nation as we marked the solemn memory of the 9/11 attacks.
It is not a reaction to the 9/11 anniversary that we know of or to U.S. policy.
And then last night we learned the news of this attack in Benghazi.
Protests were in reaction to a video that had spread to the region.
Yesterday, our U.S. diplomatic post in Benghazi, Libya, was attacked. Heavily armed militants assaulted the compound and set fire to our buildings.
We have no information to suggest that it was a pre-planned attack.
This was an attack by a small and savage group. Some have sought to justify this vicious behavior along with the protest that took place at our embassy in Cairo yesterday as a response to inflammatory material posted on the internet.
The unrest we've seen around the region has been in reaction to a video that many Muslims find offensive.
It is especially difficult that this happened on September 11th.
We are very vigilant around anniversaries like 9/11.
So first of all, what is the latest you can tell us on who these attackers were at the embassy or at the consulate in Benghazi? We're hearing that the Libyans have arrested people. They're saying that some people involved were from outside the country, that there might have even been al-Qaeda ties. What's the latest information?
In fact, what this began as was a spontaneous, not a premeditated, response to what had transpired in Cairo. In Cairo, as you know, a few hours earlier, there was a violent protest that was undertaken in reaction to this very offensive video that was disseminated. In Benghazi, a small number of people came to the embassy or to the consulate rather, to replicate the sort of challenge that was posed in Cairo. And then as that unfolded, it seems to have been hijacked, let us say, by some individual clusters of extremists who came with heavier weapons, and it then evolved from there.
Why was there not better security at the compound in Benghazi?
Well, first of all, we had a substantial security presence with our
not
personnel.
Substantial enough, though, right?
With our personnel and the consulate in Benghazi. Tragically, 2 of the 4 Americans who were killed were there providing security. That was their function. First of all, let's be clear about what transpired here. What happened this week in Cairo, in Benghazi, and many other parts of the region
Tunisia, Khartoum.
was a direct result of a heinous and offensive video.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
NBC's Ann Curry sat down with Libya's new president last night for an exclusive interview.
Do you think the movie had anything to do with this attack on the consulate?
Not on this attack. Not on this attack. It has nothing to do with this attack.
Would you call the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi an act of terrorism?
I have no doubt about that. And it's a pre-planned act of terrorism directed against American citizens.
What is your evidence that it was a pre-planned act of terrorism?
If we take the facts about the way it was executed, you can see there is enough proof that it is a pre-planned act of terrorism.
You're confirming that RPGs were used in the initial attack?
And mortars
were used in the subsequent attack?
Safe house, yes.
And do you know how many mortars were used?
About 5, I think.
And you're saying that these were fired with such accuracy that this could not have been done by someone who did not have experience?
Experience and knew what he was doing. It was launched with a high degree of accuracy, which means that the perpetrators must have some kind of exercise on how to hit and how to launch these rockets.
So do you know then who is behind this attack and what the motive was?
I think it's al-Qaeda elements who are hiding in Libya.
Do you know something you're not telling me? Or are you just confident?
No, of course. I have some facts, but it's too early. It's better not to interfere with the investigation.
the video circulating on the internet that has led to these protests.
What we saw play out in the last 2 weeks is a crude and disgusting video sparked outrage throughout the Muslim world.
To me personally, this video is disgusting and reprehensible.
I accept that people are going to call me awful things every day.
And we greatly appreciate that many Muslims in the United States and around the world have spoken out on this issue.
In Tunisia, protesters stormed the U.S. embassy, setting fires and battling with Tunisian security forces. Late reports indicate at least 2 people were killed, another 29 injured.
We're going to provoke an attack because then we will be in power for as long as anyone can imagine.
In all, protests broke out today in at least 17 nations, from North Africa across the Middle East to Indonesia.
Just bring it on. Islam, like other religions, respects the fundamental dignity of human beings.
Like me, the majority of Americans are Christian.
It is hard for some people to understand why the United States cannot or does not just prevent these kinds of reprehensible videos.
I know there are some who ask, why don't we just ban such a video? And the answer is enshrined in our laws.
Our country does have a long tradition of free expression, which is enshrined in our Constitution and our law.
Our Constitution protects the right to practice free speech.
Just a random crowd that got together with their heavy weapons, got insulted by the film, and decided to go,
There's no video that justifies an attack on an embassy.
All I can tell you is based on the information we had at the time, we have now, we do not yet have indication that it was pre-planned or premeditated.
1 month ago tonight, on the anniversary of 9/11, Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other brave Americans were killed in a terrorist attack in Benghazi. The State Department has now made clear there were no protesters there. It was a pre-planned assault by heavily armed men. Wasn't this a massive intelligence failure, Vice President Biden?
What it was a tragedy, Martha.
When you take a look at what has happened just in the last few weeks, they sent the UN ambassador out to say that this was because of a protest and a YouTube video.
We're not going to give anything up.
It began spontaneously in Benghazi as a reaction to what had transpired some hours earlier in Cairo. But soon after that spontaneous protest began outside of our consulate in Benghazi, we believe that it looks like extremist elements, individuals joined in that effort with heavy weapons of the sort that are unfortunately readily now available in Libya post-revolution, and that it spun from there into something much, much more violent.
It took the president 2 weeks to acknowledge that this was a terrorist attack.
Okay, I want to talk about Libya for a second. It was reported that people just went crazy and wild because of this anti-Muslim movie, or anti-Muhammad, I guess, movie. But then I heard Hillary Clinton say that it was an act of terrorism. Is it? What do you say?
There's no doubt that the kind of weapons that were used, the ongoing assault, that it wasn't just a mob action.
Mm-hmm. Our adversaries are much more willing to test us. They're more brazen in their attacks, and our allies are less willing to trust us.
With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey.
And why is that so?
Because not a single thing he said is accurate. First of all,
be specific.
I will be very specific. Number one, this lecture on embassy security. The congressman here cut embassy security in his budget by $300 million below what we asked for. Number one. So much for the embassy security piece. Number two, and this talk about this stating the most devastating effort.
They first blamed the YouTube video. Now they're trying to blame the Romney-Ryan ticket for making this an issue.
Why were people talking about protests? When people in the consulate first saw armed men attacking with guns, there were no protesters.
Because
why did that go on for
what
weeks?
We were told by the intelligence community. The intelligence community told us that, As they learned more facts about exactly what happened, they changed their assessment.
They wanted
But-
more security there.
Well, we weren't told they wanted more security.
We reiterated our request at all levels of government for a consistent, armed host nation security force to support the mission.